the full word, the full term. Welcome to all of you. So my job is quite simple. It's just to contextualize why we're here, why we conceptualize this conference, and what is it that we seek to achieve. I hope they can flight, the technical team, if they can flight the presentation. But in essence, what happened is when we secured a 2-year deal, salary agreement with organized labor, we made a conscious decision that labor relations in the public service is not only limited to salary negotiations. There's a whole range of other things that we need to deal with. And therefore, the fact that we had secured this 2-year salary agreement, we were going to use this period to deal with other issues that ordinarily they fall through the cracks because on a yearly basis, we get it too preoccupied with salary negotiation. So what are these other issues that we thought they were important that we should prioritize? One of them is the question of labor peace, if not the main one. But also we are in an environment where government is increasingly working on the professionalization of the public service. So the primary question for us was, what is a professionalized labor relations in the public service? And we thought this is the opportune moment to deal with that issues, because when you deal with issues of professionalization of the public service, which I'm going to go into details in a later presentation I'll make, you deal with the whole issues of the wellness of the employees, relations between employees and the employer, the generic socioeconomic and the humanistic well-being of people. So that's what we thought we should do. So in which context is this conference happening? So number one, we are in a context of increasing cost of living. And that has a direct impact on labor relations, how we relate to one another institutionally, but also as managers and supervisees. We are besides the increasing cost of living, we are also in an environment where there's a shrinking of the national fiscus. So on the one hand, there's a cost of living increasing. On the other hand, the national fiscus is decreasing, which is a serious contradiction, which has got some serious possibilities of causing some serious tensions within the public service. So the question is, how do we deal with that through an appropriate labor relations? The third context within which we are operating in is the emergence and the proliferation, that's the term that Jones liked to use, the proliferation of coalition governments, particularly at the local government sphere. But even there, you are not limited to that. It will always be at the local government. So there are strong possibilities that even at the provincial and national level, sooner or later, you might have coalition government. And the basic question is, how do you engage at that level when there's quite a conflated centers of power? How do you deal with issues of labor relation at that point? And then there is also a proliferation. We're in a context where quite a number of unions are emerging. Proliferations of unions that also, which in a way sometimes it makes it difficult to negotiate, because instead of negotiating with 2 unions that represent 20 people, you end up negotiating with 20 people, 20 unions that represent 8 people. So those are the issues that in this environment we thought is one of the issues that we need to deal with. And then there's also, in all of these things of the increase of cost of living, there is a high expectation for government to do more. And that is where the issue of government efficiency, efficacy becomes very important, because with the increased cost of living, government is expected to do more. So the question is, how do we professionalize the workspace so that we can do more with the little that we have? And that requires that we engage one another. the solutions are not only limited to government. The next contextual issue is that it is imperative for government to improve its performance. And for government to improve its performance, the workplace must be very solid. And on that scope, the workspace is very solid. What is it that we need to do as labor relations practitioners in partnership with organized labor? And then, so what we are trying to say is that there's a great need to professionalize labor relations practitioners within the state, but also those that represent the employees from organized labor. So at the end of the day is where do we find the mean to work together. So at some point, there's a presentation that's coming that is going to deal with the questions of building mutual relations strategically between organized labor and government as the employee. So what are the conference objectives? We have listed about 5 of them. The first one, this is what we hope would have planted the seed towards the achievement by the time we are done with this conference. One is to explore how current and future dynamics impact on labor relations in the public service, currently and into the near future. So what are these dynamics? Most of them is what I have mentioned in the previous slides. And then, so we have to, and Professor Maserumule will take us through some of those to say, domestically, this is the context. Internationally, this is the context. And what are the lessons to be learned from some of the issues that have happened internationally? So in other words, we are saying we need to be conscious of the dynamics in the way that we engage, but it must not be accidental. We must plan for it and execute such strategies. Number 2, we hope by the end of this conference we'll have planted the seeds to determine the meaning and substance of professionalized labor relations in the public service. We must have a sense of what does it mean to be a professionalized labor relations relating professionally in the public service. So it's not the answers that we might have only as the state, but it should be the outcome of this engagement. The third outcome that we hope would have planted the seeds to achieve is to determine the capacities and capabilities for professional labor relations. If we identify the 5 things to say this is what a capacitated and a capable professional labor relations regime, what will that be? What will be this specific issue? So in other words, we have to determine from those that are operating within the state for the public service labor relations official, what are these capabilities that they should have, and what should be our expectation from how we interact with our colleagues, for example, in the organized labor. Number 4, to reflect on the bargaining councils as democratic forums for engagement within the emerging dynamics and context. So we have got these institutions that have been established. We have got these institutions that have been established to coordinate relations between the state and organized labor on behalf of employees. So the question is, given the substantive change in the dynamics that I've mentioned much earlier, for example, the proliferation of unions, the emergence of coalition governments, all those dynamics that I mentioned earlier, is there a way that these forums need to assume an enhanced posture in the way that we manage labor relations? The 5th one is just to recommit to ongoing strategic engagement to enhance mutual benefits in the public sector workplace. There's some organization that there's a payoff line that says we're in it together. I think it's relevant. Can you go back to the first slide? Okay, I don't think I think you did not see, okay, there's no communications. Okay, so these are so what I gave you at first was just I gave you the context, and so this is what we seek to achieve. But anyway, yeah, so this is what I spoke to earlier, which you did not have the benefit of visualizing it. I mentioned the increase in the cost of living, the shrinking of national fiscus. I'm glad Marumo from National Treasury and his team is here. And congratulations for the budget speech yesterday. I think it was positively welcomed across the board from what I heard in the media. Yeah. From what I heard in the media. Yeah. And then the emergence of coalition governments, I spoke to that one, proliferation of unions, the increasing expectation of government service, delivery, and productivity and all of that. So at the end of the day, if we professionalize labor relations at the workplace, then our ability to deliver better will be realized. The ability for the state to be productive, it will be realized. And by doing that, we would have established the necessary trust between the state and citizens. I thank you very much.
A big round of applause for the DDG. Thank you very much, Ndade Hlophe. Now, at least we have been briefed on the purpose of us converging here, and you would have noticed that from the welcoming address by the DDG Tsotso, as well as now the presentation that we just heard now from the DDG Hlophe, that the anchoring word there, which of course we are going to be hearing this word throughout the conference, which I see also the leaders from trade unions agreeing with us, that the key word there, it's the professionalization of the public service. So let's not be surprised as throughout the presentations we keep on hearing, it will not be the repetition of what the other speaker would have said, but it's a demonstration of our intent, our deliberate intent as the public service to have it professionalized, which in the long run, then it will also have positive spin-offs to in terms of the productivity within the public service. And then we should also have the positive spin-offs now, which will be visible when you now begin to improve on the service delivery. So that will be the key word that will run across throughout our presentation. Thank you very much, Ndade Hlophe, for giving us the purpose of this particular conference. Now we want to anchor the conference. We've been welcomed. We know the purpose. Now we want to anchor the conference now, so that when we begin to engage, at least we know now that we are firmly anchored in terms of where we're coming from, where do we want to go, why we're here, and what are the intended outcomes of this particular conference. And also looking at, as we know, that the DPSA, its primary mandate is also to develop policy for the public service. So now, we are going to call upon the Director General, the accounting officer of the DPSA, to come and anchor this particular conference and elaborate to us in terms of what are the intended outcomes of this particular conference, even from the policy perspective. Let's welcome the DG.
Good morning, colleagues. How is everybody? Huh? Just good. Okay. Oh, this light. I think firstly, let me acknowledge the minister, Umamuno Xolo Kivit, the deputy minister, Dr. Kana Pilane Majake, who are connected online, leaders of organized labor who are here with us in your numbers, online and in attendance physically, the chairperson of the PSCPC, she's also here, my sister there, Ingrid. The members of the Labour Forum who are here, I was told not to forget them. There's also DGs, I'm told, in attendance virtually, and acting DDG corporate services as well, and senior managers who are here in all your various roles and responsibilities, including the DDGs from DPSA and members of EXCO, and our external experts that we have invited, as well as officials in attendance and our service providers in attendance. Good morning. I also want to thank the Department of Agriculture, Land Affairs and Rural Development for hosting us, for agreeing to host us in this building. It's my first time to visit here, and it's indeed quite a beautiful capacity that we have as government. And I like the fact that we have unlimited access to it as long as it's available. Keep it up, agriculture. Don't close it in future and be like another department I won't mention. So thank you very much. We truly appreciate it. We have a very good and beautiful facility. The acting DDG took me for a walk around earlier on and showed me proudly the vegetable patch, the vegetable patches that they have outside. And I think it's just quite creative, and I like the idea that some of the workers have access to get the vegetables and as well as give as part of charity work to people who are much more in need of such produce. I think it's really, it shows a government that is a heart, a government that is serving. And it is definitely a small gesture, but it goes a long way to show the servanthood that we're expected to play in our different roles in the public service. I take this opportunity on behalf of the Department of Public Service and Administration to welcome you all to this National Labour Relations Conference. For me, this conference serves as a platform for the state as the employer, together with the relevant stakeholders such as organized labor, researchers and experts on the field of labor relations to reflect on strategic labor relations issues. It also serves as a contribution to government's intention to build a capable, ethical and developmental state. The 2-year salary agreement gives us a window of opportunity to reflect on many other labor relations issues in the public service that are critical for both labor, peace and productivity. We should therefore make use of this opportunity to engage broadly on a variety of issues central to labor relations within the public sector. The interface between government and external experts is critical to unpack some of the key trends in labor relations and the implications for the public sector environment. I should have said the interface between government, labor, and external experts. Apologies for that. We look forward to the input from the eminent speakers in the program on current and future trends within labor relations environment and the implications for the state. This could not have come at a better time, as government and labor in the public service are discussing very important matters at the PSCPC, such as collective bargaining season, preparing for the collective bargaining season, which is about to start soon. This conference also comes towards the end of the 6th administration. Now we know the date for elections, and one of the priorities of our 6th administration is building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. This sector plays a critical role in entrenching the values of capacity and capabilities. Solid, appropriate labor relations are critical elements for a capable state. This is so true. If we don't fix our labor relations in the public service, we will not realize the capable state that we want to build. If we let large numbers of our employees to be on prolonged suspensions for years and years, and we don't intervene and fix issues at a policy level, at an operational level, that makes it impossible for us to complete cases on time, we're gonna have problems of paying people salaries who are staying at home. So we really need to relook at a number of these particular issues. That's just one example I'm giving there. So because labor peace remains a necessary condition for effective and efficient service delivery, it is against this background that the MTSF enjoins government to create a stable public service. And as government, we need to do everything possible to promote and consciously invest in labor peace in the public service. The citizens demand no less because they require services from the public service. Employees are an important asset for government and must be looked after and create an environment where they can strive. Where there are challenges, such must be dealt with in a collaborative manner. Efficiency and efficacy must characterize the way the public service handles complaints and grievances of employees as part of dispute prevention. As indicated earlier, this conference presents government with an opportunity to reflect. Therefore, trends in dispute management, including from councils, must be strategically reviewed. Appropriate and responsive interventions to promote labor peace should be implemented. The MTSF also requires that the public service should be professionalized. Cabinet has since institutionalized this through the framework on professionalization of the public service. Conference should deliberate on practical steps to professionalize the labor relations environment in the public service. Earlier on today, we released the Directive on Professionalization of the Public Service, Volume 1, and this is a directive that is signed off by the MPSA. And amongst a number of issues that this directive is addressing, it seeks to promote employment of young people in the public service. Some of the instructions that are coming out of the directive is to remove requirements for experience for entry-level positions from level 1 to 6 that are not supervisory, so that we can be able to employ younger people into those positions who may be recent graduates or recently have graduated with their diplomas or degrees. And so this is an important step for us. The other important step with this directive in terms of promoting employment of younger people is that we have a number of young people who complete their qualifications in universities or technicons. Do we still have technicons? No, we don't. It's exposing my age. In universities, in institutions of higher education, let me be politically correct. So these young people are unable to get their certificates because they still owe the universities. So what we are providing for is that the employer, which is government in this case, should still be able to recruit that young person based on the academic record and being able to verify that academic record with the university as part of the personnel suitability assessments that we do. So we should not be leaving that population of young people because they do not have the certificate to produce and yet they've finished their studies. So those are some of the changes that are coming through. And I must acknowledge that this is one because our directives also will look at reports from the PSC, reports from the Public Protector, reports from the AG, on top of the research that we do and the monitoring, because some of whether our policies are working or not, we pick them up from the monitoring that we do. So this issue of young people in higher education who are owing is an issue that came out strongly from one of the reports of the Public Protector. And therefore, we then have been working with the Public Protector's Office to get this, to address that particular recommendation which they had made previously. I think it was made last year. We're also talking to effective use of competency assessments for SMS as part of the selection criteria. What we have seen is that we have not been using competency assessments in a sense, because we take people for competency assessments, we employ whether you meet all the 4 requirements, the key competencies, you meet them or not. We don't consider that particular issue, but we are making it compulsory that we look at that, because if those of you who are in management in departments, I'm sure you have experienced cases where a person comes looking bad on all 4 competencies. The person has no people management skills, the person has no strategic leadership, the person has no financial management capability. You employ them, they create havoc in the department. They create a headache in the institution. And when we employ them, we don't even take them through training. In terms of the mandatory training, we don't even take them through training. So we need, if we're really serious about professionalizing, we need to ensure that at least the people that we bring in the public service are not going to bring more problems compared to the problems that we are trying to solve in the public service. We are also removing red tape and reducing reporting burden. One of the things I've heard ever since I arrived at DPSA is complaints from teachers about the regulations, the red tape, and this and this. And we made a commitment that over time we are going to reduce the red tape and the burden of compliance in the public service. Well, we'll still be expected to do compliance, but we are consolidating, we are removing the long, many reports that must be submitted, because the irony of these reports is that we don't even have capacity at DPSA to process some of these reports, because we're also hit by budget cuts and they are taking from vacancies in the department. So how do we efficiently ensure that you use your time effectively, especially colleagues in the HR and labor relations as part of the HR value chain? How do you use your time effectively and strategically to really run with your responsibilities other than having to write reports every day? This is work in progress. We've started with the amendment regulations and the directives that are coming out, but it is work in progress. For instance, one of the things we're saying in our regulations is to integrate the planning. Many planning documents that we need, we must integrate with the DPME planning system that is in place, so that you know when you submit your annual performance plan to DPME or your strategic plan, all these other things that are required, you are taking them into account. You don't have to come back and bring an SADIP plan, come back and bring an HR plan, come back and bring this. It's not, so we have to integrate in respect to that. We need to we are strengthening our merit-based recruitment processes. This is very important. There's been a raging political debate on cadre deployment, and there was a decision of the High Court yesterday. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm reflecting on that because my view and my sense is that there's a lot of misrepresentation in that debate, in the sense that in the public service, we have laws, we have directives that are very clear in respect to how we bring people in the public service. How we bring DGs and DDGs, national DGs and DDGs are appointed through cabinet. And those submissions from cabinet to cabinet, they come through DPSA. We verify, we check everything that is in that submission before we take it to cabinet. We have never, and we will never take a colleague who does not qualify, who does not meet the minimum qualification requirements, the minimum entry requirements rather, to cabinet, for cabinet to process. Even if the appointing minister wants that particular person, we do not do it. We have returned submissions, cabinet memos back to departments because of a range of issues. So for us as the system, as the public service, merit-based recruitment is very important. And where we find that people are not exercising merit-based recruitment, there should be consequences, because obviously the system is bigger and it can be manipulated here and there. But from a principle perspective and a law and a legislation perspective, it's very clear for us that merit-based recruitment, our Public Service Act is very clear on that matter. The decision of High Court yesterday has further for us confirmed that the Public Service Act is still constitutional and very relevant, because part of the argument was that it's not constitutional. However, it has confirmed that for us, we must continue to strengthen the work that we do with improving the Public Service Act, but also, so this directive is also aimed at contributing in strengthening merit-based. It is not introducing merit-based, because merit-based is there in the system, but we have to continuously strengthen our systems of recruitment around that. And we must modernize our recruitment, selection, and appointment processes. IFMS has dealt some of us a big blow. And I need not say much, because all of us, I think, have experience of working with paper processes in the departments. And I'm quite happy in the sense that the conversations we are having currently with the National Treasury are pointing that we might have an opportunity to get out of the IFMS processes as the Public Service Department, so that we put in place an overall integrated HR management system for the public service. It's still at an early stage, but I can say this, Marumo, because of the discussions that have been held on this particular matter. But there's work that needs to happen there. There's also cost-benefit analysis and other things that must happen. But it's very clear in our view that we must modernize our recruitment, our selection, and our appointment processes. We must make the public service a learning environment. I was reflecting this morning when I was preparing for this conference that I have been in the public service, I can't even remember now. I started in 1996. How many years? 25 years or something. And then I took a break for 1 year to go and study. But one thing that has always been present in my life in the public service was learning. I've had mentors, I've had bosses, I've had people around me who had an interest on my development, who were also creating environment for me to learn. And I think as senior public servants who are sitting here right now, in different roles and responsibilities, we have a responsibility to invest. We have a responsibility to invest to the younger generation. We have a responsibility to create an environment for people to learn in the public service, be it they are old or be it they are young. We must create a learning environment in the public service. Our leadership, our management style must ensure that there is a learning environment in the public service. Yes, we provide bursaries for people. Yes, we give people an opportunity to do skills development courses. But if you do not give people an opportunity to stretch their capabilities through the actual work that they are doing every day, if you don't throw them in a deep end and allow them to swim and to discover how to swim if they don't know how to swim, with your guidance and your support, what kind of a public service are we going to leave behind when we retire? We are an aging public service. A lot of us are facing retirement. What kind of a public service are we going to leave? Are we going to be those retirees who want to be called back at 70 to come back and resolve challenges of the public service, which we've had so many years to resolve when we're in the public service ourselves? So I think, colleagues, it's important that we take the issue of creating a learning environment. And I know that learning is a two-way process. It's the manager creating the space to learn, and it's the person who should be learning, being in a zone and a space to learn. So, but we must never give up on people. We have to create that environment for them to be able to learn. As I move towards closer, Chairperson, for us, building the capacity of labor relations officers is important. What I've seen with labor relations in the public service in the, I think in the past 10 years, if I may say, it makes me sad. Because I think we have so narrowly defined our scope in labor relations. And I think it's in HR broadly. We have so narrowly defined our scope to just implement a directive from DPSA and sometimes not even implement it properly. There is no strategic thinking, there is no strategic engagement or strategic input around that. I was saying this yesterday, one meeting, EXCO in the department, that, I don't want a labor relations report that just tells me about grievances and complaints. I also want to know proactively, what are we doing to build and strengthen relations in the organization, not just to be processing grievances and complaints. Yes, we have a responsibility to do that, but beyond that, at a strategic level, what are the things that we're handling? What are the issues that we're dealing with that on their own, if we deal with these issues in a proactive manner, they will help us not to even have some of the grievances that we have in the organization. How are we building peace in the organization? Because resolving grievances and resolving complaints is not building peace. By that time, there's already no peace. So how do we ensure that we work together to build peace in the organizations where we work is very important. Labor relations practitioners should remain relevant and clear about the advice that they dispense to principals and must be informed and well-researched. Focus should be on dispute prevention, justice, and fairness. In 2022, government and labor hosted a public service summit to deliberate on matters of mutual interest. We must continue to progressively engage and implement those decisions that were taken in that particular summit. And hopefully, we will have an engagement one day to report back on progress in terms of those decisions. I know one of the best programs that have come out of those decisions, out of the summit, which is a partnership between labor and government, is the work that is being done around focusing on a women development program for in labor relations space to build capacity for negotiations, amongst others. Trade unions are a strategic stakeholder for the employer in the delivery of public services. They also contribute to democratize the workplace. They represent the interests, wishes, and aspirations of employees, their members who are our employees. And it's important that we give them that space to be able to do what they are supposed to do. It's also important that we call them into order when they are being out of order. Because I think sometimes what has happened is that senior managers withdraw from their responsibilities because they are scared of the unions. I've observed this in a number of environments where people would rather, senior managers would rather be friends and entertain the union than do their responsibilities because they are afraid of the union or because they are afraid to lead or whatever their reasons are. So my position on this is always we must support our colleagues in the unions to do their work. I always say, personally, I'm a product of workers' struggles. I have benefited. I wouldn't be here today, standing here and talking to you, if it was not for the struggles of many South Africans, including workers, who fought for the laws that we have today, but also we must gather against abuse of those laws. So it's a very tricky balance to maintain, but we have a responsibility to maintain that balance as a collective. In conclusion, government has a responsibility to collaborate with trade unions to maintain labor peace in the workplace. We are therefore encouraged by the presence of the leadership of organized labor at this conference. We are eagerly looking forward to your input, colleagues. Where there are challenges, they can only be resolved through social dialogue, which we are well known for, and we dare not fail. And as government, we are always available to engage. Thank you very much.
A big round of applause, please, for the DG. That was profound, DG, and thank you very much for having anchored this conference. Colleagues, you would have noted that without really repeating on what the DG has presented, but then if you listened attentively to the entire presentation of the DG and then you juxtapose that with the declaration that we came up with from the 2022 Public Service Summit, you'll be able to see a thread that connects this particular presentation, this particular address, with the resolutions that we arrived at that summit, which is an illustration that indeed we are taking those resolutions very serious, and we will make sure as government that we implement those resolutions, Comrade Greg and Lisiba, because those are the ones I've seen here. We'll make sure that we implement those resolutions. It's not coming from me, it's coming from the accounting officer of the department. And DG, as you're talking about the aging public service, it's a very scary thing, because now if you can narrow it down and then look at your team of negotiators there and so forth, and you try and rationalize that in terms of the age, including from labor, you are going to end up with about 10% of those that always go to the PSCBC. 90% will have to go away, including myself. So we must be very careful as we deal with that matter. But it's a very serious issue that we have to look at and so forth. So, colleagues, without much ado, we have a slight adjustment to our program. As the DG has indicated, you have indicated earlier, we have our executive authority with us, even though she has connected through the virtual platform, the minister, together with the deputy minister. But at this stage, we are going to call upon our minister. But before we call upon our minister to address this particular conference, our minister does not need really an introduction. We all know our minister. She has served in many roles. She is the member of the African National Congress, and she became the minister for this public service administration, for the sixth administration in March 2023. Before then, she was the deputy minister of public works and infrastructure from 2019 to 2023, before she came over to the public service. And before then, she was the premier of the Eastern Cape. And she's currently the member of parliament of the Republic of South Africa. In terms of her advancement, in terms of her career, I must indicate also that, because I see it's not written here, it's written in white, which she always remind me when we engage with her, that, by the way, I'm the negotiator myself. That's her line, so that you know, when you're going to give her a report, you must not try and sugarcoat that report, because she looks through you with that eye of a negotiator and say, no, did you look at this matter this way? Did you look at this matter this way? So you must always be on your toes when you go and report to her around the bargaining matters as a negotiator in her own right. From 2003, 2004, she was also deployed as the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, the Office of the Premier, and she served in various committees. She's a very astute leader of the movement and of government. Let me just take this opportunity to welcome our minister, our executive authority, to address this particular August occasion. Minister, we are in your hands. A big round of applause as we welcome our minister. You'll pardon us, Minister, we're trying just to correct the audio so that we can hear you. Are we waiting?
I'm not there personally, but understanding that there has been introductions and protocol that have been followed, I also rise on that protocol so that I don't find myself having to account on why I left out so and so. But allow me, Program Director, to indicate that it's truly my profound gratitude to be now addressing at this important forum. But I also would like to alert you to the fact that everybody in South Africa now knows that all roads are leading to KZN for the ruling party's manifesto on Saturday, and therefore I had to jump out of the budget yesterday after it was presented and find my way towards KZN. I would have loved to be with you in person, and hence my apologies. But I must indicate that this conference takes place at a time where South Africa, yes, is preparing for elections on the 29th, we all now know, 29th of May. And I have no doubt in my mind that a lot indeed has been done in the past, and these elections are necessary for us to ensure that we maintain our democracy. Having it been 30 years since such a democracy, I believe that the labor relations space can also attest to the fact that it is no longer the same space that was there before 1994. As an employee of the time, remembering how we fought for maternity rights for women. I mean, this is a natural process to give birth. But in those days, in the public service, a teacher